Town Council meeting. Today is Monday, March 27th, and we will begin this meeting at 7:30. I would like to ask everybody in the audience to stand and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Roll call, please.
Council President Healy.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins.
Here.
Councilman DeCruz.
Here.
Councilwoman Gledhill is absent. And Councilman Veely.
Here.
Thank you. Item number 4. Do I have a motion to approve item number 4, A and B, for the work sessions and regular sessions from March 2nd, 6th, and 13th, and the regular session of March 13th?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Do I have a motion to have the consent agenda approved?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item 6A, a resolution granting a holiday sales license to Sprint Spectrum, 20 Main Street, Suite F in Wakefield. The application is by Laura Veet. Is Laura here to speak to this? No? If not, we can come back to this in case she does come in. A resolution granting a victualating license to ZZ Brothers LLC, El Fuego Mexican Grill on Main Street in Wakefield. Is Zachary Walker here to speak on behalf of El Fuego? Please come up to the podium and state your name.
My name is Zachary Walker.
Okay. Is this just a renewal, or are you looking to change any of the parameters of the business?
Yeah, we're changing hands of ownership.
Okay. How about the hours? Will they be remaining the same, or?
Yes, the same.
Okay.
Great. Love the menu.
Yeah, all the same great stuff.
All right. Well, I make a motion that we approve item 6B.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving on to item C, a resolution granting a miscellaneous permit to conduct the Run for Kerry Road Race on August 6th at 9 a.m. And I did see Kathy. Did you want to come up?
Hi, I'm Kathy Bissett, here on behalf of Run for Kerry, just to ask to have our license for this year's Run for Kerry.
How many years has it been now that you've done this?
16.
Motion to approve agenda item 6C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 7. This is 7A. We talked about this in the work session a little bit, a lot of these items. A resolution adopted February 7th by the South Kingstown School Committee concerning group home aid, concealed firearms in school grounds, Teacher Tenured Act, early college, dual and concurrent enrollment regulation, curriculum and instruction in health and physical education, student transportation, student assessment information. The town council further directs.
I'll make a motion to place communication 7A on file.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, any oppositions?
Well, I thought we might just have some discussion on it.
Sure.
I mean, I feel like a number of these are worthy of support. I think that's probably what the school committee sent them up to the General Assembly already. I think we don't have enough information to go into all of them in detail, so I'll vote for this. But I do hope that the General Assembly will take action on group home aid, Teacher Tenure Act, early college dual and concurrent enrollment regulation, curriculum and instruction in health and physical education, student transportation, which is something that costs our town a lot of money. Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second, and I think,
We actually already voted, didn't we? Or no?
I don't know if we really voted yet. But
Again.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to 7B. We have a lot of resolutions here tonight. This is a resolution adopted on March 13th by the Charlestown Town Council in support of Rhode Island Promise to provide 2-year scholarships to state colleges and universities in support of inadequacies of low and moderate income housing act as they affect municipalities outside the urban services boundary, as identified by the town of Gloucester in a report submitted by the LMIH Study Commission and requesting the General Assembly to enact a special act authorizing the town of Charleston to regulate earth removal activities within the town. How do we wish to proceed?
I recommend that we place this on file.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Moving on, resolutions adopted March 20th by the Jamestown Town Council in support of gun-free schools legislation, House Bill H5345 and Senate Bill S0187, and in support of immigration enforcement legislation. How do we wish to proceed?
I'll make a motion to place these on file. I think we'll take up the immigration enforcement issue in coming communications.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries. Communication dated March 20th from Vito Bonamano, the third Northeast Solar and Wind Power LLC, requesting adoption of an ordinance permitting medium-scale solar projects on farms is received. And are you here to discuss this?
Yes, I just want to give you some good news from Rhode Island DEM and Ag Land Preservation Committee.
Okay, can you please state your name for the record?
Vito Bonamano, owner of Northeast Solar and Wind Power.
Okay.
I've been meeting regularly with Ag Land Preservation Committee in reference to the Cottrell Farm, and it's pretty certain it has a conservation easement on it, the entire farm, except for about 4.5 acres. We plan on putting a 1-acre solar system in the back, but we need to get power to it. And Ag Land Preservation Committee is going to alter the deed, allowing us to put 2 telephone poles and to trench out from 138 to all the way to the back of the farm on Waits Corner Road. They should have the amendment next month. So that's good news for the Cottrells. And my apology, my attorney could not make it, but he wanted me to give you this information in reference to the Cottrell farm. So my engineer is going to get up and respond to the town manager's letter.
Scott Milton's Equinox Renewables. We just had a couple, we came to the town almost a year ago, and we were trying to put an amendment to the farm ordinance to have, we have 3 projects in South Kingstown, the Cottrell Homestead, the Aaron Clark farm, and Darrell Bouchard's turf farm down on the railroad tracks. And we've worked and went to many planning board meetings, and we ended up going to the council, and the council recommended that we go back to the planning board to try to create projects for these 3 clients. These 3 projects have interconnection tower with National Grid. They have engineering work done, and we've moved these projects. in a very positive way. We feel that it's almost been a year since we came to the town, and the council actually sent us back to planning board. And since that year, we still only have 3 projects, and these are 3 good projects. The neighboring towns of Hopkinton and Richmond have both have amended their ordinance to allow solar on farms that have more than 10 acres of land that are have tax ID numbers. And we're just reaching out to the council to see if there's any way we can move these 3 projects forward. Because we saw the planning board said maybe by the end of the summer, and it just seems it's been a long process, and we feel like we have 3 good projects, and we're just trying to find out a way, if there's any way to help us move these projects forward.
I feel like I remember when you came in, maybe October or September, whenever that was. You said that there were some time constraints, and when we, said we were going to have an answer for you, maybe in February, I think.
Right.
Do those time constraints still exist?
We've been getting extensions from National Grid. These projects, the interconnection cost to tie these projects in is each about, between $40,000 and $50,000, and National Grid has given us extensions, but that will only go on so long before they say, they want us to do that. So if we don't know we have a clear path, the projects will all obviously drop off. And, we feel these are 3 good projects. They're pretty much, the Clock project is back behind. You can't even see it from the road. The Cottrell project is way in the back now, and the Washington County Turf project is down the other railroad tracks. So,
yeah, and all these projects basically were designed to meet those proposed ordinance stipulations that
yes,
worked up.
Yeah.
Town council gave the planning board until February this year. And now they're talking summer.
He was right. Go on.
We met at the end of last year, and the town council gave the planning board till February 1st to come up with a comprehensive ordinance. And now the planning board needs an additional almost 6 months to figure out what kind of shrubs to put around these solar projects.
I think they're probably looking at much more than just that. And
Right.
I think the planning board has been trying to do its due diligence.
We understand that. We met with the Conservation Committee, and they were in favor, and they gave their recommendations. And it seems they got to the planning board, and it went to meeting, to meeting, to meeting, to meeting, to meeting. And when we initially came in, we met with the town planner, engineer, and everyone downstairs. And our intent was to do the farm viability thing, where only farmers who are real farmers who have more than 10 acres, the exact Richmond Hopkinton pass, that was our simplest path, and it seemed to take a direction of its own, that now we're creating a whole ordinance for the whole shebang. And we just see if there's a way to create a simpler way to to bring these projects to forward, because we feel like what may come out may not even allow these projects, because we saw the draft, and the zones they're in, they don't, the draft doesn't really tell us that a project can happen in their area, even by special use permit.
I agree with your assessment of the direction that it's going.
Right. We've been to meetings. They don't want us on prime soils, and they don't want us to cut trees. All South Kingstown, all these farms are on prime soils when you look on the map. So if they say no prime soils, they'll basically eliminate all projects on farms. These farmers are struggling that have these farms, and this is revenue streams to these farms that will be for the next 20 years.
To this point, we have not received much information from the planning board, so that can be an expectation that we can ask the planning board to provide to us, so that we can go in a direction to either make this move forward. It's just, we really haven't had too much information, to be honest with you.
Right. I mean, I've seen a draft, so there's a draft out there that they put together. And, just by what the planning board wrote, they're talking the end of the summer, come back to the council next September or August.
Well, not that it minimizes your pain, but we asked the planning board for direction on the unrelated renters ordinance. I think in July of last year, we thought we'd have something back by October or November. We got it back last month. We got a much better product than I thought we would, that the council could get behind because of their due diligence. Again, I can't address, your instance exactly, but this, it's a long, tedious process, and to come out with something that protects everybody.
Right. I mean, we've seen the draft, and we're looking to guidance in this draft to address that the zones that these farms are in, they can do projects, and that guidance isn't even there. So that's the biggest piece of the whole puzzle. If it says no on that draft, then we can't do a project. And there's many pieces to the puzzle, but that's a big piece to it. And we felt the farm direction was the way to go, but they don't even talk about farms in this ordinance. There's no benefit to farms in this solar ordinance. It's just across the board what zones you can go in. And if you read, I have a copy of what Hopkinton and Richmond passed, but if you read that, it's basically they want farms with more than 10 acres so they can only use 10% of their land for solar, and the other 90% stays farming. But they're not even going down that path in this ordinance.
Can we find out why it's taking so long?
That'd be a great answer. I represent the Cottrell Farm, and these guys
Sorry,
have done their work.
Could you just state your name, please, for the...
Pamela Jeffrey.
Thank you.
And my mom was one of 9 children from that farm, just so you know. And these guys have done their work. What you're not understanding is what all this time that you're taking to make a decision is money they could be making to keep the farm going. And once we lose our farms, once we have houses or pavement or whatever it is, they're gone. This is the most beautiful farm in Rhode Island. It's gorgeous. And it really bothers me to see solar going on, houses everywhere, and we're talking about, I know exactly where they're going to put this. It's by a pond. You don't really see it from either road. I mean, take time to decide what shrubs you're going to have. I mean, I will go out and put the arborvitae up. It'll cover it all over. It's something that will help this farm keep going. And I can't understand why it's taken 5 or 6 meetings with all of you to get to this point. I mean, we're talking about a beautiful piece of Rhode Island. We're talking about a beautiful piece in South County that's been 5 generations of family running it, and they're on a shoestring right now, and they just need to put up this solar thing, put a few trees around it. Nobody's going to see it. What's the big frapping deal? I mean, it's really discouraging to me to see what's going on here. And these folks have done their homework. They know what they're doing. Everybody's studied it. They know what's going on. And you need to just listen for a minute and try to do something to help the people of South Kingstown. This is a farm, it's been in the Narragansett Times, the Independent, front pages of everything, Providence Journal, and here you are not helping them to keep going. They just need some help. This is a little tiny thing on a little tiny piece of their land that's going to be covered up. Nobody's going to see it from either Waits Corner or 138, and I can't believe it's taken so long to get this thing done. I really can't believe it. I really, really can't. My husband owns a business in Wakefield. I've worked in this town. I grew up in this town. I went to school in this town. I love South Kingstown, but I'm really starting to wonder what the heck is going on here. Ask me a question.
No, I I understand.
I voted for you, Abe. Ask me a question. I voted for you, Margaret. I voted for you, Joe, and I actually voted for all of you. So let's ask me a question about this. This is, I show cattle. I mean, some people show dogs and cats. I show cattle. I have a farm. My milking animals go to this farm so that their milk makes Rhody Fresh. Okay? Rhody Fresh.
I buy it.
Buy it. Everybody buy it.
Everybody
buy it. Rhody Fresh milk. To keep these, they're in a co-op to save the farmland. Why is this so hard to do? I don't get it. I don't get it. 5 times here to talk to you people. I don't get it.
It is frustrating. I agree
Frustrating
with
for you, but frustrating for us. I have family milking these cows every day, twice a day. I have 11 cows in that herd. My brother has 30 cows in that herd. What is frustrating about this? We need to have this done. Help the farmers. Help the people.
Well, yes, and I agree, and I voted for the ordinance change the last time that you were seeking, even...
You were so close to doing it the last time. And I went to Florida for 2 months and came back, and we're still not done. What the frig's going on? Let's just get it done. Do it. Do it. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for this farm. Do it. These guys know what they're talking about. My family knows what they're doing. We're dying here. Help us out and do this.
I hear you, and I think we all hear you, and maybe we can look at that ordinance again. I'm sure the recommendation from the planning... I don't have the power to do things on my own up here. I'm not the king. But I really appreciate the work you've done in developing this project for the Cottrells and the other ones, and I think it's really...
As far as the planning board, I've been to meetings personally. In the beginning, it seemed that things were flowing, and as the meetings went on, it seems that we went there, they didn't really want us there anymore. And we were trying to be helpful on the technical end of things, but it got to a point where, we figured, why would we go? Because they really didn't want our input on what they were developing. It just got to a point where it didn't feel like they were trying to make something happen.
Right, and if I can try to channel the planning board here, I think what they're thinking is they don't want to just tailor ordinances that are specifically for one person who comes to the planning board. They want to develop a holistic approach to solar in town. I don't agree with the fact that it wouldn't be allowed on any residential properties, these larger projects. So it has taken far too long, and I apologize. We said we were going to have an answer for you, and we don't. But we can't take any action tonight. That's for certain.
But we can certainly address the planning board to see what the status is and what they've done, so we can help to accommodate the Cottrell family and the others who want to be involved with the solar
That would be
project.
greatly appreciated, and thank you for your time.
Convey your concerns.
Thank you very much. And it's just frustrating where we can go to Richmond and Hopkinton and they support the farmers in a matter of 2 months, okay? And then we come here and we're talking 18 months, okay? So that's where our frustration is. Thank you for listening to us.
Let's see what we can do to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to place this on file and refer it to the planning board.
Can we put a time frame on that for a response from the planning board?
Can we do that, Steve? Or Mike?
I think the planning board has given you the information in the memorandum that they felt that they needed 3 more work sessions to be able to get to a final recommendation. As I said to you in the pre-session, the issue the planning board's dealing with is that this isn't the sole issue that they're dealing with. They're dealing with citing different projects as well as marijuana legislation. All of those different things are before the planning board. There's been staff changeovers that have occurred, as well as leave of absences that have been required. I'm hopeful that once the final draft from staff is provided, that there isn't a need for 3 work sessions by the planning board. But again, the way zoning works is you need to wait until you get something from the planning board to take action. And I think you're going to get that. It just depends on how long it's going to take them as far as the special conditions that they want. But I can't control that process, only the planning board does. We can request them to consider some type of expediting of their review of the product, but their question to me will then be, well, what is it that you want me to stop working on?
Would it be possible to reconsider the ordinance that we looked at in September, whenever it was? Or is that...
I think you'd probably be going backwards. If they've given it more thought, at least they're going to have answers. Last time they gave you a negative recommendation on that ordinance.
Right.
That's not going to help us.
But we don't need a...
From a staff perspective, whether we can make sure that from legal and from staff, that we've got a final product in front of them that they need to react to. We'll do that at the first meeting in April. I've already talked with staff. They will have a draft completed and with legal review that will be before the planning board. If they take 3 work sessions, it's going to take that long. If they don't, then we can move it quicker. Once it gets to the council, we need 3 weeks of advertising and then hold the public hearing.
Right. But could we reconsider the ordinance that we heard before, even if it would had a negative recommendation?
With a negative recommendation, you could still vote in the affirmative. I'm not sure whether you're going to get any different vote than what you had when this came before you back in November, was it?
Right. I think the vote might be different because when we voted before, it was under the understanding that we would be able to provide an answer for these folks before now.
See what I can do, but again, it's outside of the staff responsibility.
Can I make a suggestion? Why can't the planning board, the next meeting they have, vote to have a resolution to have these 3 projects to go? The planning board, possibly the next meeting, to vote to have these 3 projects be approved only under a special use permit. And under a special use permit, all the abutters get letters.
You would still need to set up the zoning for the...
There have been no projects that have been submitted for review by the planning staff that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, my engineer has the paperwork. Everything was submitted in May of last year.
There are not 4 applications that are on the planning department at the staff level at this point that I'm aware of.
But there's no special use permit process at this point, so how could you submit an application? So it's not going to be allowed until we have the special use permit zoning available. All right. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item E, communication dated March 21st, 2017, from Margaret Buchit, Immigration Committee of the Rhode Island Women's March, requesting adoption of an immigration protection proposal, is received and placed on file, and the council further directs.
I think there's some folks here that would like
Yes.
to speak to that.
Yep.
I'm speaking for many people who are here besides the Women's Committee. There are members of the religious churches and organizations in town. We also have a representative from the ACLU who is here. So if you have any questions about it, just ask away and I'll try to answer them or get someone here who can.
You want, please, sort of just for the people who are watching at home, for the people in the audience, why don't you sort of detail what you're asking for?
I have a statement prepared. Would you like me to read it?
Sure.
Okay. The Immigration Committee of Wakefield, the Wakefield chapter of the National Women's March, urges you to adopt the proposed resolution for the protection of immigrants. We ask you to be a voice for all residents of South Kingstown regarding the equal, respectful, and fair treatment of people, regardless of immigration, ethnic, or religious status. Our town has long been a welcoming community, and we call on this council to voice an intention to remain so. Frightening measures and rhetoric currently being used by the federal government regarding detention and search for immigrants and foreign residents in our country need not be our town rhetoric. The implication that we as a town must cooperate with possibly unconstitutional federal measures need not be our local response. In the March 15, 2017 Providence Journal, author Joanne Pope Mellish reminded Rhode Islanders of a time in 1850 when personal and civil rights of people were threatened by the United States government. The Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 required citizens as well as officials to, quote, assist in the capture and transportation of fugitive slaves. Rhode Island responded. Our state General Assembly passed laws to prohibit state officials from cooperating in the capture and removal of fugitives. Those who defied the new state law were subject to fine and imprisonment. The law also stated Rhode Island's jails cannot be used for the detention of fugitives. Today, 162 years after our Assembly saw fit to take such a step, we suggest that courageous measures are once again needed. Rhode Island, its towns and cities must remain a voice of compassion and reason for those threatened by a federal government that seems intent on ignoring human rights. We urge you to adopt this.
Any further discussion from the audience?
Pardon me?
There's someone behind you that would like to speak.
Okay. Pardon me? Not.
There's other folks that would like to speak.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Julian.
Hi, I'm Joanne Pope Mellish. Margie spoke to the historical piece of this. I'm a historian, but I want to address a slightly different historical issue here. The question, with the fugitive slave law stuff, there was a whole first set of personal liberty laws that were declared unconstitutional because they attempted to regulate a federal law. And it's illegal, turns out, unconstitutional to regulate a federal law. The second wave of them were non-cooperation laws, and that's what we have here. One of the reasons that their non-cooperation laws are apparently legal is because the 10th Amendment says that the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. And this amendment has been interpreted as prohibiting federal commandeering of local officials in a case called Prince versus U.S. in 97. Federal commandeering of local officials, cooperation. The federal government cannot require cooperation, which is why I think you see this threat of withdrawal of funds and stuff, because they can't stop you, but they can threaten you in other sorts of ways, which I'm not speaking in favor of those, but I'm saying that's an indication that they cannot stop you legally. It's also this question of commandeering. I don't know if you've ever seen, have you ever seen an immigration detainer? This is an immigration detainer, and it says, it is requested that you. It doesn't say it is required, it doesn't say it's demanded, and there's been a lot of back and forth with the federal government changing the wording from required, recommended, requested. The current is requested. A request is not a requirement or a demand. It's also the case, I would say, that it's not only humane to non-cooperate, but it's economically prudent. 10th Amendment protection has been extended to prohibit unfunded mandates. A mandate is a requirement imposed on a subordinate level of government to provide a public service that otherwise would not be furnished, or to provide a public service in a more costly fashion. It's unfunded if the higher tier of government fails to reimburse. Municipalities bear the costs of capturing, detaining, and transporting undocumented workers, and there's also been a lot of writing on that. It's expensive, and it is not reimbursable. So I would conclude with it's within the legal power of a municipality to refuse to cooperate with ICE, and we did it once, we need to do it again, and there's a long list of towns that are doing this. Bloomfield, Connecticut, Hartford had passed an ordinance. Some of these are passing resolutions, and some of them are passing ordinances. Massachusetts, Chelsea has a sanctuary policy. Concord, Massachusetts has a proposal. Newton, Mass, Somerville, Mass, they're close by. Part of New England and part of this historical tradition of protecting the humanity of people. So I respectfully request that you support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Good evening. I'm Jeff Mellish, live on Lake Street here in Wakefield. I am on the executive board of the ACLU statewide, and I do serve at times as a volunteer ACLU attorney. The ACLU of Rhode Island has sent out in the last few days a proposed ordinance. And what you have before you tonight is a resolution. The ordinance I hope you will consider in due course. It is a model ordinance that I think is designed to be stronger than a resolution. But a resolution is important to set forth the values that we have as a community and to protect due process rights of all of our residents and to have equal protection for everybody and to ensure that everyone is treated well. And as the resolution indicates, there are a lot of people in this town who are students or residents, students of our school system, students and staff and faculty at the university who all are subject to potential abuse based on their national origin or their religion. And I think we as a community should be very aware of this and should join other communities across the country who want to ensure that the federal government does not force us or attempt to force us to violate our morals, our values. And there are many church people, many political organizations that are attempting to protect the rights of all of our citizens and all of our residents. So I would ask you to support this resolution and over the next series of weeks and months to consider the ordinance itself. I hope other towns will take similar actions. The resolution, I believe, has been supported. Clearly, we're getting a lot of support out of Providence. Providence is leading, the mayor is leading much of this effort. The president of URI has taken some public stance to protect the university community, and I think this is the right course for us to take as a community. And I would ask you to consider this and support it.
My name is David Helfer. I'm a minister new here in town at the Unitarian Universalist congregation over in Peacedale. I speak to you not only as their minister, but also as a member of the Rhode Island Council of Churches, though I am not speaking directly on behalf of them tonight, but rather about the work that's happening statewide. To echo what my colleagues have been saying, this is something that we're doing across the state. Town after town is taking up this issue, understanding that you're where the rubber meets the road. You're where we decide who we are and how we will respond. So as a person of faith, I ask you to support this resolution.
Thank you. Any further? Oh, okay, come on up.
My name is Jan Terry. I attend a church on campus, and I think our responsibility to the university, our only state university of Rhode Island, I think we need to respond to their needs. And believe me, there are so many new people coming daily, weekly, monthly to that university as students, as visiting professors, and in many capacities. And I've lived in South Kingstown for how many years? 35, 40. Raised my kids here. We've ourselves sponsored, starting with Vietnamese immigrants, and there's been a tremendous amount of support from many areas of this town for immigration. And I believe that especially because of our ministry to the University of Rhode Island, it's very important that this town recognize that responsibility. 2 days ago, my husband had someone for lunch from China, and he knows nothing about this country. And if somebody were to come to him and accuse him of being an illegal, we would jump in there for him, but we also need the support of the town. So I ask for your support of this. Thank you.
Further discussion?
So, Mike, you offered some feedback on the proposed resolution.
I offered 5 specific suggestions on making modifications to the resolution. I'm more than happy to review them.
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Okay, so my first suggestion was, as you see, the whereas clauses all have an asterisk, and that asterisk then all references on page 4, adherence to the ACLU guidelines. So my first suggestion was that the asterisk be removed and the reference to the ACLU guidelines be deleted. My second suggestion was paragraph 4th. It should read with that first sentence, but the remaining language would be deleted. And the same thing with paragraph 7th, which mandates that the police department develop an operational and appropriate guideline. They have such guidelines already in place, and I attached, I think, the policies that the police department already has. I also suggested to delete paragraph 8, which requires the manager to disseminate the resolution to all employees and to develop employee guidelines. The reasoning for my suggestion that paragraph 7th and 8th be deleted is, number one, that the current actions being taken by town officials are consistent with what the resolution's trying to achieve, and it would be incredibly burdensome to kind of go through that particular outline as set forth. And finally, on paragraph 10th, my suggestion was to leave the sentence that says town employees and officials shall monitor any efforts by the federal government to withhold or withdraw federal funding, but to delete the rest of it because there are no new local policies that are in place at this point. So those were my 5 suggestions, and if you're going to adopt it, I would recommend that you do so with those suggestions. I had conversations with both the police chief and the town manager about this, put a little work into it, and again, those are my suggestions for your consideration.
I think the major concern from a staff perspective, and particularly from the police perspective, is that everything that's in the resolution, other than what Mike has suggested be revised, has been and continues to be our practice. In fact, our policies specifically state that all people must be treated equally. We are not looking to deal with the federal government. They've got a role to play. We've got a role to play. But our role is to make sure that anybody who's a victim of crime, regardless of their nationality, has an opportunity to be served by that police department, or if they're a witness to crime, to be able to come forward and be able to testify. All of those things are a hallmark of what a good police department does. Our concern was that it needs to be recognized that we agree with what the resolution suggests. However, it is a practice of this department already.
So what I would say is that I think what we're trying to deal with here is the concerns at the national level, trying to do what we can at the local level to let people feel comfortable in knowing that they have the full support of our town. And how we do that, I guess, is the question. What wording do we use that everyone can agree with? And I do agree that our policy, and I've spoken to the chief about it, is what you said. We're not out there looking to enforce these types of federal laws, but I also think that there are folks in our community that are very worried. So how can we alleviate their worry to the best of our ability?
And I appreciate what Steve says, and I don't think we want to send the message that our town has been doing anything that doesn't conform to this resolution already. I would think that, it is sort of mentioned in the first whereas clause that we've long welcomed and embraced individuals, but we could bulk that up a little bit to recognize the leadership that South Kingstown has shown in non-discriminatory police policies. And then, I'm comfortable making a motion to approve this resolution with the suggested amendments that...
Have we had any cases of discriminatory behavior here in town? Chief, maybe you could answer that, or because I haven't heard that South Kingstown treats people in different cultures in different ways. I think this point is more national than it is local.
Yes, Joe Jaber, interim police chief. No, we haven't had any situations like as far as immigration problems or picking anyone up for immigration. We strictly are out there to enforce the laws against whoever may break the law. We're not looking for undocumented aliens. We have enough to do. We don't have time to do those kind of things, nor, excuse me, I'm not sure what questions you have. We haven't had anything that I can recall for numerous years dealing with immigration, if at all.
If this resolution is adopted, I don't really look at it as a local resolution, but more of a statewide resolution.
Yes, I agree with that. I don't know, maybe Jeff knows, I don't know if any towns in Rhode Island have adopted this, or if the Attorney General's office has adopted it, or if the Rhode Island State Police have adopted this. I don't know. I don't know of anyone who has.
I just, being a legislative body here, don't feel we should be manipulated by ICE, if you will, because truthfully, if we are a community that does embrace different cultures and people who come in, because certainly the university has a lot of different people and cultures there. I would hope that we would respect each other, and I do feel that we do here in South Kingstown, unless there have been specific incidents that we have not been made aware of, but I haven't heard of any.
No, I don't know of any, and we would not want to discourage a victim or a witness from coming forward because of their status. We certainly wouldn't do that. We need those people to make our case, and we don't want to scare them off as opposed to, using them as a witness. The only situation I could think of is when the person in question has committed a crime. And then I know that we have to recognize their rights, but we also have to recognize the rights of the people in town. So we have to recognize the private citizen as well as the undocumented person. So there's a balancing act there, but we are not in the business of enforcing ICE requirements.
Right. I think there's no question that our police officers and we as well have taken an oath to uphold the law. I'm sure nobody has any intention to disrespect or treat anybody with dignity based on their status, as it were. So, I mean, based on the comments from the manager and the town solicitor and the police chief as well, I think we're doing what the resolution is asking us to do already.
Yes, I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Sure, absolutely.
I don't think, Joanne Mellish, I don't think that anybody is saying that South Kingstown doesn't do this. The question is, does South Kingstown have an affirmative policy, a stated policy? And the reason that it seems to me that's important is, for example, there's a House Bill 5093 that essentially demands cooperation, and it demands cooperation of state and municipal employees. Susan here needs to turn in the undocumented worker who passes by. I don't think that will pass, but there is a counter bill that essentially would establish, and I hope it will pass at the state level, an affirmative policy of non-cooperation with those requirements. And what's being asked for here is an affirmative policy. It is the case we don't do bad things, and that's great, but that's not the same as having an affirmative policy of non-cooperation. And I think that's important, particularly in the face of potential bills, again, trying to compel cooperation, which you have a legal right to resist and the right to have a policy against.
And you've given a feeling on the first bill that you discussed, but on the second bill, do you think that would pass as well, or not pass? Hard to predict, I'm sure.
5515, I think I don't know. I know that of the 5 people who put the first bill in, 2 of them dropped off, somebody else added. In other words, there's a sort of ferment about it at the State House. The second one was submitted and they're both in front of House Judiciary
The
Committee.
second bill specifically said to have a policy of...
The second bill, I have a copy here. I would be happy to give you.
I don't understand those at all.
But the first bill demands cooperation, and it demands cooperation of everybody at every level, presumably school teachers, because they're municipal employees. That's disturbing, I think. But the second bill focuses on what ostensibly is the point, at least the government is saying so at the moment, of ICE, of protecting adjudicated people by doing things like not telling ICE what the likely release date is of adjudicated people and so forth. In other words, those people, protecting them. But it also has an explicit statement that says that there is no duty to report. The House 5093 has an affirmative duty to report on the part of everybody.
Right. No, I understand that.
And the second one says there is no duty to report. I think that's an affirmative. That's a policy, a protective policy. I mean, it's more complicated than that. There's more to it, but that's
right.
Basically.
I guess my question is: so, in the case of the police officer, is that asking him to ignore his oath? And I guess
No.
I'm asking for your opinion. So,
In the case of the police officer, part of the point is to keep people from being afraid to report crime. But it's also the case that a police officer who arrests an undocumented worker for a crime processes them through the crime, but is not in any way, he's not going to further detain him. So let's say he's adjudicated, he's found not guilty, but he's still an undocumented worker, right? Neither the police nor the courts would under this would have any affirmative obligation to turn him over, so to speak. So it's protective, I think, in ways that are important.
and understand, I'm not challenging you. I'm trying.
Yeah, I just think an affirmative policy is different from a state of being swell, which I'm agreeing we are, but a policy that prevents abuse of various kinds and protects municipal employees. I mean, I sort of know Susan well enough to think she doesn't want to turn in the next 3 undocumented workers she sees, but under that, it's possible. A policy would prevent you from having to do that. That's all.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'm Bill Oley. I'm a professor of electrical and computer biomedical engineering at the university. I'm chairing a search committee. We have 63 applicants, and most of them are from outside the United States. We're a crossroads. Given all the things that are happening at the national level these days, our applicants are worried about what happens if they accept the job here. That never happened before. And I think that could go a long way in ruining the university, ruining the academic environment that we really hold dear here. Your affirmative vote on this resolution will really help me tomorrow when I'm interviewing another candidate who's of Chinese descent, saying that our town is welcoming. And I think we can do that at the local level. And yes, we've always done great things, okay? And yes, we're a welcoming community, but boy, given the things that are going on in Washington now, it's not normal. We need to make affirmative statements here, and I really urge you to do that.
Thank you.
So, unless there are any other comments, I'd make a motion that we...
I just have one thing I wanted to discuss with it. I'm for making a motion. I support this, but I also feel that I take Mike's comments very seriously, and do we potentially put it forth with the edits, or do we say we need to put their legal in touch with Michael so that we can come up with something that the town can live with, that makes the community feel safer?
I think we can make a motion with the amendments as presented.
I feel like the solicitor's changes are good in general, and they don't change the tone or the effect of the resolution at all. And like I said, I would add in a little extra to that first clause where there's whereas to give more recognition to the police department. I would say, feel free to offer friendly amendments to this, but I would say, whereas the town of South Kingstown has long welcomed and embraced individuals of diverse racial, ethnic, religious, and national backgrounds, and the town takes, this is where it would be new, and the town takes great pride in its commitment to non-discriminatory police policies. And there, and then say and, whereas, to the next one.
So if I can just ask a question. So with that clause that you just read, the town takes great pride in its non-discrimination police policies, and the 5 edits that I suggested to you, you would adopt. You are moving that motion, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we want to have discussion on
Yeah. I'm still struggling with a couple of things. Town staff has given us some direction. I'm also struggling with, we ask our police officers, and we have taken an oath to uphold the law. While I want to be sure that everybody's treated with respect and dignity, if there's a person that's not obeying the law, that needs to be addressed and can't be ignored.
I don't think they're saying to ignore that in this case.
Right, I think what we've heard is that passing this resolution will really not change any of the operations of the town.
I think we all agree to
but
that.
It's an opportunity to...
Nor will it change anything in Washington, by the way.
No, but it might change something for that person who is applying to take a job at URI, as the professor here just testified to. I think it's a bigger issue than that. And, it's an affirmative position, and it affirms really our historical legacy in Rhode Island, South Kingstown, as being a place that's welcoming to anybody who comes. So I'm fully in support of this, and the resolution.
Well, I could support. Again, I have some concerns, but
I have some concerns as well. I do. I just want to understand that this either does or does not open us up to becoming a sanctuary town, if you will. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons that have been discussed specifically up in the Providence area about this. And I've heard an awful lot from community members about this. So if you'd like to speak, yes.
It's a really good question, and I don't have a whole answer, but what I can tell you is that the conversation that's happening statewide among faith groups, there's a couple hundred faith groups talking about sanctuary. This is separate from that. This is a discussion that, as we've talked about, is an affirmative. It's an affirmation of what you're already doing. It is not a stepping stone. In terms of what's happening in all the neighboring communities, in terms of the conversations being had, this is not a stepping stone to being a sanctuary community. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so where do we stand? Okay.
Jan Terry again. It's my understanding that sanctuary, the word, has never been defined, and so I don't think we can say what anybody's going to call this. We're not calling it sanctuary. It's simply putting forth a policy and letting everybody know. That's why it needs to pass, is so that it can be published and put out there and people will know. But to me, it doesn't mean sanctuary.
Michael, Based off of what you read, what is your interpretation?
I do not believe this resolution in any way establishes the town of South Kingston as a sanctuary town.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would also, historically, when Rhode Island passed personal liberty laws, the ones that, the non-cooperation ones that were legal, were constitutional, there was not a great rush of fugitive slaves to Rhode Island. What that did was protect people who were already here. There were some people, there were some fugitive slave cases that are famous ones in Boston, Anthony Burns, but Anthony Burns wasn't heading for Boston as a sanctuary city. Anthony Burns ended up in Boston, and then a slave catcher came after him, and that was a big deal. But the numbers of cases were under the fugitive slave laws were relatively small. It protected people who were in place, who suddenly were subject to being snagged. It didn't. Rhode Island wasn't suddenly overflowing with fugitives. I think it's the other way around. It's protecting people who are residents, who are our residents, whom we live among and who are at the university. So I don't think, if that's the issue of, well, my God, it will attract, historically that wasn't the case, and I don't think that's the case with this.
Yeah, that's not my issue. My issue, again, is...
Well, it was her issue, though, I thought. It was.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I was...
Well, it's just a question.
Yeah, no, but that's what I was addressing, not yours, but hers. Thank you.
Perhaps I think the question from Mr. Vialli might have had to do with the issues with the police, the local police, in doing their job. Yeah. In writing this, I can say to you that I was thinking of our local police and the job that they do, and that they know that their town stands behind them, and that we expect them to be as fair as they've always been, and that we as a town don't want outsiders, for instance, ICE, telling our police that they have to. Now, of course, if it comes down from the Rhode Island Attorney General that they have to do something different, then that's it. But when I wrote this, I was thinking of our local police and, in fact, supporting them.
Thank you.
I think, just to make sure that it's clear, our police officers are sworn to uphold the town code, state, and federal constitutions. Every police officer is responsible for that. Department policies establish how do you do that and how do you do it fairly. Our policies have been in place for several years that have dealt with racial profiling, that have dealt with what probable cause requirements are for what the 14th, the 10th, and the 10th Amendment, the 4th Amendment, and the 14th Amendment mean in terms of law enforcement. So the resolution with the revisions that Michael suggested not changing the way we conduct business, but whether you adopt it or not, they're going to continue to meet those standards. And, Margaret's right when she says that if there's changes that come down, we're going to have to address them at the time that those changes come down. Hopefully, we're not going to see any changes, and we'll be able to continue the same practices that we have for years. And that's what makes this a welcoming community. So I'm concerned that people understand that police have a job to do. Their job is not to enforce federal regulations or federal law, but their job is to do what the constitutional requirements are.
Well, I'm, as I said, I'm prepared to vote on this. But if you have more questions,
I don't have
can
any
help
more.
I don't have any questions. I could support this again with the changes recommended by staff, and personally still have a few concerns, but understand that there are many points of view.
So we have a motion.
I seconded it, but I'll do it again. I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to item number 8, comments from interested citizens. This would be the time that anybody in the audience, if you did want to come up and make some comments. Please state your name.
My name is Arthur S. Lawrence Jr. My family owns property at 870 Plains Road. I've been in communication with the town manager today, and you should have a letter in front of you from my family. I don't know if you have that or not. I actually sent a draft letter, then I had to send it a corrected version.
We do. We have the correspondence.
Okay, so... Excuse me? Okay, and you should also have a copy of the appraisal done by Hool, by James Hool, which
Plains
indicates
Road.
the difference in the
Yes.
property. So right now, I respectfully request that we have either a hearing or a continuance for tonight so that my family can be, we can get a better sense of what's going on with this situation. I understand that the town manager is going to, that the city solicitor and town manager is going to say refer it back to them, but I'd like the town council to be in on it. Because I feel that there was a situation where my attorney was in touch with the town solicitor, and there was in essence an agreement to at least do something to negotiate a more fair decision on the property, and that hasn't happened. So basically, that's what I'm looking for at this point. Have you read my letter or not? Was there time to read my letter or not?
In the comments from interested citizens, we can't make any decisions or
I understand that, ma'am.
changes, but
I
certainly...
understand that. That's not what I'm asking.
But you certainly can read a letter if you would like. Yes, absolutely.
All right, my name is Arthur S. Lawrence Jr. My family owns property at 870 Plains Road, South Kingstown. My family purchased the property for me to live in while I attended the University of Rhode Island. The property is located across the street from the Superfund dump site on Plains Road. The Superfund dump site contaminated the water supply to the property. The town contacted my family to sign an easement for the property in 2014. My mother, who is now 99 years old, is very upset about this situation. The paperwork in part stated to whom it may concern. As you know, I previously corresponded with you on October 31st, 2013, relative to your assistance in providing an environmental easement for your property. As noted in my October 2013 correspondence, the above referenced property is located within the boundaries of the West Kingston URI Superfund site, which the towns of South Kingstown and Narragansett, in parentheses towns, are cleaning up under the supervision of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management, RIDEM. As part of the cleanup, EPA is requiring the easements with restrictive covenants, environmental easements, be obtained from several properties in proximity to the site, including your property. On November 13, 2013, Rhode Island DEM and the towns of South Kingstown and Narragansett met with affected property owners who were appraised of the need for the monitoring and a description of the testing wells. The state and local government representatives also answered questions and addressed local concerns. Another issue says grant for and in consideration of the terms of the consent decree and other good and valuable considerations paid and the agreements and promises herein set forth, the receipt and sufficiency of which is hereby acknowledged, grantor, which in this case would be my family, on behalf of itself, its successors, and assigns, does hereby covenant and declare the property shall be subject to the restrictions on use set forth below, and does give, grant, and convey to the grantee, which would be the town, EPA, and DEM, general warranties of deed, the perpetual right to enforce and use restrictions, 1, the perpetual rights and use enforcement restrictions, and 2, a conservation restrictive pursuant to Title 34, Chapter 9 of the general laws of Rhode Island as amended. There are several things that were incorrect in this paperwork. There was no previous correspondence. My family was not notified of the meeting, therefore did not attend the meeting. The grant speaks of good and valuable considerations paid. When my family first received this document, there were no considerations offered to my family. I do not know if any of the other parties involved were offered and received any quote-unquote good and valuable considerations. I do not believe they did. Please note this is a permanent easement on the property and affects my family and anyone purchasing the property. I have over the past few years contacted and been contacted by Mr. Michael Ursillo, the South Kingstown Town Solicitor, Mr. Peter DeCambry of the Boston office of the EPA to sign the easement. I have refused to sign the easement. An appraisal was done by Scotty & Associates. The result of that appraisal was an offer of $5,000 to sign the easement and land use restrictions. Since I disagree with the value of the assessment, since I disagree with the value of the easement and the appraisal, I hired attorney Marissa Desatel to represent my family. Attorney Desatel reached out to the town solicitor's office about whether the town would be willing to discuss the appraisal and the offer concerning the easement. After receiving communication back that the town was amenable to discussion, I hired an independent appraiser. Mr. James Gould did a more complete appraisal of the property and the damage done to the property by the Superfund dump site contamination. His appraisal contains a much different value of the damage done and value of the easement. His appraisal is based on sound and reasonable expert calculations and research. Attorney Desatel has been in touch with Attorney Ursillo and was told the town was comfortable with the Scotty appraisal and would not make any other offers. I feel the town has acted in bad faith regarding the appraisal. Had I known the town was not willing to discuss the appraised calculations, they probably would not have spent the money on a second appraisal. My family are the victims here. We are innocent landowners who are being taken advantage of. I hired an attorney and attempted to bargain in good faith for recordation of an easement and land use restrictions for a problem my family did not create. I am here tonight to be certain the council is aware of the damage done to my family by the actions of the University of Rhode Island, the town of South Kingstown, by the Superfund dump site. My family is now in the situation where signing the easement will bring additional financial loss by having the stigma of being part of the Superfund dump site. I respectfully request the town council review the information about this situation, including the appraisal that we commissioned in good faith, and have a more complete discussion with my family. I recognize the town solicitor is going to ask the council to refer the matter back to it for legal opinion, but I would ask the council to exercise some independent judgment here as well. We already know the solicitor and manager's opinion is that the initial $5,000 valuation is the only offer. I am asking the council honor the town's promise and actually actually review the appraisal I paid for. Respectfully submitted, Arthur S. Lawrenson Jr. for Alice Lawrenson, Lawrenson Family Trust. So that's where I stand with this. What I'd like to have is somehow put on, I don't know the procedures here. I don't deal with this sort of stuff. But I'd ask that this be brought as something on the agenda for the next town meeting and be addressed at that point.
So, as you know, and as Mr. Lawrenson mentioned, my suggestion is this evening...
So I can are you Mr. Ursillo? Okay. I didn't realize that.
Refer this back to the administration and my office. However, I know Mr. Lawrenson is asking you to specifically place this item on a future agenda. And before you do that, you need to hear back from us, because you as a council cannot be in a position of negotiating something. You've never done anything like that before. You can give guidance. You can certainly ask that we take things into consideration, all of those things. But Mr. Lawrenson is represented by legal counsel. Obviously, the town's represented by legal counsel. I'm more than happy to have further discussions with Mr. Lawrenson's legal counsel. So at this point, I would, again, refer it
back to you.
There will be correspondence that will go out, and we'll take it from there. And I will get back to you with where we're at.
Michael, would there be at any point during those discussions, would there be any need for the council to be involved?
Yeah, I will certainly let you know. I'll keep you totally updated, yes.
With all due respect, there has been correspondence back and forth already. which is why I'm here to ask the council to get involved in this.
And I think I've made the point that the council cannot be negotiating an easement like this for a whole lot of reasons.
And
I will reach out again to Mr. Lawrence's attorney, and I will report back to you, and they will be aware of what that is.
so where does this stand then?
So this is an item that we can take action on, as has been stated already, but the solicitor has given us his word and you his word that he's going to be in further touch.
He has been in touch with us,
Right.
and his response was that they're comfortable with the appraisal the town paid for, and I don't believe anyone's looked at our appraisal.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to discuss this at any length, we should make it a separate agenda item for...
Yeah, which I'm going to ask you not to, because ultimately this might be a point of litigation. I certainly don't want it to go there. I do everything possible to keep the town out of lawsuits. But you need to allow the manager and myself to move forward with this first. Now that Mr. Lawrence has brought it all to your attention, you know what the issues are. Give us an opportunity. And I'm not saying I'm going to come back with anything different. I am saying, though, that we'll go back and speak once again, because it gets complicated. There are reasons in the appraisal that was done by Mr. Lawrence's appraiser. Maybe what I have to do is talk to his appraiser and point certain things out, but
I appreciate...
this process will be the best one, and then we can get you and Mr. Lawrence and or his attorney will be aware of what next steps would be coming.
I think...
Understand that there's not just the town of South Kingstown that's involved here. We're talking about the town of Narragansett. We're talking about the University of Rhode Island. We're all talking about DEM, and we're talking about federal EPA. Because if we can't settle this at a local level, EPA has the authority to be able to direct changes. And so there's a number of things that need to be reviewed here. Discussions can be had. They don't necessarily end up in agreements. But at the same time, we certainly can discuss them.
So I'm sure this is not a satisfactory answer from your point of view, but the people on this council here, we don't have the expertise really to adjudicate a lot of these legal...
That's not what I'm asking for.
Things, right.
What I'm asking is that you review the appraisal that was given, so you at least have that point of view.
Right.
Because that way, at least you're informed as to what the situation is.
I think we'll definitely see the appraisal from your side, and we'll see the appraisal from our side. But I think a lot of the details are going to be hammered out between lawyers, between the agencies that are...
Unfortunately, that's what I've discovered. It's apparently, as a regular citizen, I can't get too much done, because I've made various attempts over the past 3 years to get stuff done, and pretty much the common comment is you should hire a lawyer, which I've now had to do. But, again, the bottom line of this, and I've said this with Mr. Ursillo, this really is not my problem. My family bought this house so I could have a place to live when I went to school, to URI, and actually Professor Oley was one of my professors. And the concept was, if I'm going to pay rent to someone, pay rent to my parents. And through various actions, my family is now suffering the consequences of these actions. I hired a lawyer because I was told to hire a lawyer. We thought we'd be able to negotiate something. The response was, town council's comfortable with the other appraisal, and that was that. So that's why I'm bringing it to you, because I figure you're the next step up in the chain of command with this stuff. That's what I want to be. I'd like to be sure things are heard more than anything else.
I understand. And thank you for raising it to our attention.
Were you, I understand Mr. Alfred gave you copies of the letters, the draft notice, and then the final letter. Were you also given copies of the appraisal that I paid for?
He had them tonight,
And
and
we discussed
we can
it
get
in the work session.
copies, but we do not have copies at this moment ourselves.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A copy of your appraisal,
Excuse me?
email that you sent.
I emailed the copy to you.
Yes, they have access to it because it was in your email.
Okay, but then again, they do not have it in front of them to look at. They would have to go invest the time to look that up. My question was simply, did they have it in front of them to look at? Apparently not.
Your letter indicated that it was attached.
Mhm.
They have access to it if they so desire to review it.
You'll have to forgive me to an extent, because I have an old phone. I don't do a lot. I do a fair amount of stuff on computer, but when I want to know something, I print it, so I have it in front of me, because if I need to make a note on it, I really can't make a note on a computer screen. So that's why I'm asking if they have it in front of them, because it's a whole lot easier to reference stuff to me. And I tend to think they're of a comparable age to me, and a piece of paper in front of them.
And you have provided them with the second copy that you provided us late this afternoon.
All right, thank you, sir.
Meg, while you were out, there has been no motion, just so you know.
So we do have access to that. We'll review it, but again, we probably don't have the professional expertise to say
again,
whether
I
that
don't-
appraisal
I-
is good
I
or not.
understand that.
That's where the
As I don't have the professional expertise either, which why I apparently had to hire an attorney. However, there is such a significant difference in the two appraisals and the mechanisms and methods. I feel it necessary to bring it to your attention.
We can definitely get a hold of that information, absolutely. And then until that time, if nothing has changed since I stepped away for a little bit, we'll refer it back to Mike. And okay, that's fair. I think that's fair.
All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Tara Apperson. I just wanted to let you know that I presented the town clerk with a hard copy of a petition that was emailed to you yesterday. 221 people signed asking that you fund our schools at least a 2% increase over this year. I hope that you take the time to read the comments of your constituents that are on the hard copy of the petition. Abel and Meg, thank you for supporting the 2% at the last meeting. Joe and Brian, I hope that you'll reconsider your suggestions of 0% and 1.35%. While I understand you feel declining enrollment should mean an automatic decrease in the bottom line, I think looking deeper into the issue shows that facilities costs are not decreasing yet until this audit that the school committee has begun the process of working on is complete. And insurance, benefits, and salaries are increasing, warranting an increase to the school budget to maintain the level of education that we have. I'd love to see the school committee find some more creative ways to save. I'm in agreement with that, and I know Liz has been a big proponent of finding some more efficient ways to save that aren't necessarily staff cuts. But I think more time's needed to achieve that. And I just want to say that as a homeowner and a taxpayer, I'm completely comfortable with at least a 2% increase for next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
I actually read all the comments. I received an email from Sarah.
Okay.
Anybody else like to get up to speak?
Hi, I'm Brooke Conley. I signed the petition, but I wanted to say that at least a 2%. I would support a 4% increase. I was looking at the budget between the healthcare costs, the increase in teachers' pay, the step increase, the decrease in funding. It's over $1 million, and what was approved doesn't even start to cover that. So this is something we'll be talking about a lot more, and I hope everyone will keep an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come to the podium? No? Okay.
Can I just say thank you for passing the immigration protection proposal. I really appreciate your votes on that. Thank you. As a voter, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, town manager's report.
Just one item. late this afternoon, I got a letter in from the school department indicating that they will be initiating interviews for consultants that have submitted proposals for the facility study starting next Tuesday. It was after hours at the school department, but I will contact them tomorrow to determine what the submitters have submitted, get copies if in fact the council wants to participate, because I'm not sure what criteria that they're using as far as the interview process, but the council's been invited to participate. I'm not aware if they've accepted proposals and to what level of detail they're expecting the interviews or how those interviews are going to be conducted next Tuesday. But I just want to give you advance notice. I will get something out in the packet hopefully for Thursday for you.
Okay, thank you.
So they don't follow a similar sort of RFP process? Like they don't have set out the guidelines and then go with the low bidder?
There was a request for proposal that they, it was a whole document that they prepared for the consultants to submit. But the level of detail that's in each of the proposals is really something that needs to be looked at before somebody can really provide any type of meaningful review of the proposals. So I'll see what I can get from them, but the council is being invited at this time for next Tuesday, if you wish to participate in that component of the process. That's all I have. I've gone over everything else in the pre-session.
Town solicitor. Okay. I have just a question. This is kind of off the when is Dale coming back? Okay, because I have 3 proclamations I have to give this week. Oh, and I emailed them to her. Okay. Thank you. Appointments. Any appointments tonight?
I'll make a resolution to appoint Jennifer Kruger to the Affordable Housing Collaborative Committee for a term to expire August of 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Want me to keep going?
Yeah.
Resolution to appoint Ann Heffron to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire September 2018.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did we make a second first?
No, we did not.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll make another resolution to appoint William Rosen to the trustees of the South Kingstown School Funds for a term to expire of June 2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good luck.
And make a resolution to appoint Thomas Daniels to the Zoning Board of Review for a term to expire. This could be interesting.
Oh.
March of 2017.
Yeah. So these are...
These are 3-year terms. Do you want me to just go to 2020 here?
This is an alternate position?
Yes. Yep.
We also had Michael Henry here. So we have 1 vacancy.
We have 3.
3, but we really have 3 vacancies.
Right.
Right. Is that...
You need to appoint 1 full member and 2 alternates.
Right.
You need to move the first alternate
Sure, Zach.
to full membership.
Okay, so Steve, does it make sense to, I think you indicated Ernie George would be interested in an interim. Does it make sense to put him as the full member?
Indicated a willingness to Jeff that he would serve 3 to 4 months to give council opportunity to recruit other members. See whether Jeff's,
No.
Well, I think...
I'll take your direction on this.
He's willing to serve. You could bring him in as either an alternate or the full member, since he had 20-plus years.
Has a lot of experience. Maybe we give him the full as an interim for maybe 4 months. And then Thomas Daniels and Michael Henry
As
2 alternates, and move Richard Zirzak up.
I'm sorry. Wait.
Okay.
We'll do this one at a time. With Ernie George,
Yep.
here's what you should do. You should appoint him to the full term, and then knowing that he's going to then resign. Because maybe it'll be 3 months, maybe it'll be 6 months.
Yeah, okay.
We really don't know. So let's appoint him to the full term and allow him to then submit a resignation at some point.
I'm not sure you have the authority to appoint.
Right, okay. March 2020.
Oh, I'm sure he'll love
Ernie's
this
gonna
when he
hate me.
finds out. Tell him he can call me if there.
So I'll make that motion. He wants us to do these individually.
I'll second.
That makes sense.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
All right, now we're moving Richard Jerzek from an alternate to a full member.
Yes.
That's a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Same term to 2020.
Same term.
2020.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Make a resolution to appoint Thomas Daniels to the alternate position, first alternate position, for a term to expire.
It's the same 3 years.
When did we appoint him? 2 years ago?
So let's.
So you can
let's-
make a motion that he's appointed to a term to fill the outstanding vacancy.
Correct.
We'll plug in the date.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
And the final resolution is to appoint Michael Henry to the, I guess, second alternate position for the vacant position. And you folks will determine the.
Again, to fill the vacancy.
Right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Phew.
Board appointments.
Nope. Yeah. Tell them it's my mistake.
Let's see where we are. 12A, a resolution continued from March 13th, authorizing the town manager to execute Rhode Island Department of Transportation construction and maintenance agreement for High Street improvements. As further detailed from the Public Services Director to the town manager.
Good evening. So we met with the Wakefield Village Association last Friday. Myself, Josh Rosen, the town engineer, and the project manager from RIDOT, and we were able to have the RIDOT make some changes, some appreciable changes. We received today an amended design that just has what's considered a stone diaphragm and a sand filter down in the corner by where the pedestrian bridge approach is. And we provided, I met again with Mr. Tetzner this afternoon. So it seems like there's general agreement with that. RIDOT still has to they've spoken with DEM today, and it looks like they have conceptual agreement with DEM, but they have to submit a permit modification at this point. So what we are asking the council to consider is approval of the 3 stormwater BMPs with the proviso that the town manager will not sign the C&M agreement until we get the written assurance from RIDEM that they're okay with the design that we presented this afternoon to the Wakefield Village Association. Mr. Tetzner. That's correct. Yep.
Well, I'm ready to make a motion on this. I think it's great the changes that you were able to get.
We're still, the other thing I want to add is we're still going to, the association still was wanting to see if we can do some landscaping, and we'll see what, RIDOT's able to do in that regard as well.
So how do you want us to formulate this motion, Mike?
I know they wanted something in writing when they were here.
Yeah, so the way it was structured is the council would approve the C&M agreements, but would authorize the town manager to sign them, but the manager won't sign them until we get the written assurance that the amended design is acceptable to ride them in DOT.
So moved.
Second.
Approval of the new plans.
Second. And for discussion, I think it's great that we took an extra 2 weeks. We seem to have gotten a much better project. And, you know, sort of on a handshake, we're going to try to do whatever landscaping the downtown merchants would like. And hopefully it's a win-win and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I think, you know, this is, again, a poster-child project for RIDOT. I believe it's one of the first ones in the state where they're falling into the new stormwater regs, so they want to, I don't want to speak for them, but they want to make it work as well. The project manager was off last Friday, but he came in to meet with the association representative. So RIDOT wants to make the project work.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. 12B, a resolution adopting the town beach policy for 2017 season and amending the schedule of fees as shown here in Exhibit 1.
The only change in the fees, and is that, or I should say, within the schedule itself, is definitions provided for service animals, as well as so that it meets the conditions of Americans with a Disability Act. Plus, we've also modified the picnic area rental procedures from last year. All other fees remain the same.
Motion to approve item 12B as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Really?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:12. It's going to be quicker than this. Oops. I thought it was going to be a lot quicker than this. Not after the last meeting.
I'm glad we passed the,
Thanks, baby.
I know that some people don't feel that it's necessary, but I'm glad that we passed it.
That was 5 hours.